click on the nightlight and get tucked into a comfortable spot. We're about to go on a journey to dreamland, and the best way to get there is by listening to a bedtime story. I'm your host, Nathaniel, and this is Sleepy Time Stories. Tonight's tale, The Princess and the Sky Blue Filly, originated in Arhon Galiski by the White Sea. We have updated it, modernized the English, and even added in a thing or two. This story will take us to the east to an ivory palace in the dark woods. There we will find a magical fire that has been burning for years. But before we travel to that distant land, we'll need to go and check in on our favorite gnome. Picture yourself strolling through an enchanted forest. Little lanterns light your path. The forest is especially vibrant at night. The frogs croak, and the crickets rub their legs together. Iridescent fairy dust drifts down from the trees. Soon you come upon a clearing. A small fire burns in the middle with feathers and hay strewn around it like a bed. The gnome takes a piece of wood and a whittling knife from his pocket. He starts to carve 3 holes for a flute. You lie down. The flames feel warm on your entire body from your head to your toes. The gnome notices how comfortable you are and decides to join you. He's tired as well. He's been pushing that cart for oh so very long. He can't help but open his mouth and yawn. You both close your eyes. The gnome expresses how nice it would be to hear a bedtime story. The Princess and the Sky Blue Filly. Once upon a time, a young princess was strolling through the palace grounds when she came upon a tiny caterpillar sleeping on a leaf. Its blue skin shimmered in the sunlight. When it woke, its golden eyes peered up and warmed the princess's heart. "Aren't you a pretty one?" the princess said as she plucked the caterpillar off a tree and carried him back to her bedchambers. Over the next few days, the princess took good care of the caterpillar. She let it sleep on the left side of her pillow, brought it the most pristine leaves from the garden, and fed it drops of fresh water from the well. Each day, the caterpillar grew a little more, and each day, the princess spent more and more time gathering breakfast for it. By the end of the week, her mother, the queen, marched into her bedroom and screamed, "What is that thing on your bed?" She pointed at the caterpillar, who had grown so big it barely fit on the princess's pillow. "Get it out of here!" The princess had one of her father's soldiers carry the caterpillar down to the stables, and there it lived in a stall covered with hay. Each day it grew a little larger, and each day the princess brought it more leaves and more water. By the end of the month, it was as big as a cow. It took 5 handmaids and 5 footmen gathering around the clock to find the bushels of leaves and buckets of water needed to sustain it. The queen screamed at the king, "That thing's unnatural and can only bring ill will. Why do you let her keep it?" "What harm can a caterpillar do?" the king responded. Even though the queen was sure the beast meant to hurt her daughter, she had to admit, in its current state, it seemed far more interested in tummy rubs than biting off her daughter's fingers and toes. So the queen left well enough alone and didn't speak another word about it until one morning when things changed. In late autumn, the princess got up early and went to the barn to brush out the caterpillar's fur. But when she arrived, she saw it had spun a cocoon. Well, that's why it's been so hungry, she thought. It's getting ready for the long winter ahead. To her mother's dismay, the princess had 4 footmen carry a canopy bed down to the stall so she could sleep near the cocoon caterpillar. After 7 days, the princess woke to a loud neighing. She looked over to find a blue filly emerging from the cocoon. For those that don't know, a filly is a young female horse. Her hide was as blue as the sky on a day in May, and her mane as white as cream. The princess wrapped her arms around the horse's neck and swore she would always take care of it. Now the queen was not a fan of the creature. "A blue horse with a white mane can only be a monstrosity from the land of fairies. You must send it back to whence it came." "Oh, well, let me think this one over," the king said. The king knew 2 things. 1, his daughter would be upset if he got rid of her new pet. And 2, his wife would nag him every day until he agreed to do exactly that. So he went about hatching a plan that would appease them both. He decided to throw the biggest party the kingdom had ever seen, and while his daughter was distracted, he would have his soldiers deal with the beast. He clued the queen in, and together they went to the royal steward and asked him to make the arrangements.
"We wish to hold a feast within a week's time. Bring in the longest tables and fill them with tasty treats and flagons of mead,"
the king told him.
"Call forth minstrels from far and wide. Let them sing songs of the princess's coming of age. Summon all the suitable suitors in the 7 kingdoms. Invite them to come and try to win our daughter's hand, for only the brightest of the bunch will she marry."
While everyone at court prepared for the festivities, the king went to see the royal shoemaker.
"Make me a fine pair of slippers with this caterpillar cocoon, but tell no one of the threads you use."
"But of course," the shoemaker said, "the finest I shall weave." A few days later, he presented the most beautiful little slippers. They were blue with golden toes. The princess loved them so much she refused to ever take them off. On the day of the feast, the suitors lined up outside the great hall. Each came in individually, and when they presented themselves, they would find the princess sitting in a silver chair with her feet resting on a velvet pillow. The king would say,
"Tell me the type of threads these slippers are made of, and you shall have my daughter's hand."
There were poor and rich suitors, smart and dim suitors, handsome and not so handsome ones as well. They each tried their luck at guessing the material. Some guessed this and some guessed that, but none of them guessed right. By the end of the day, the princess turned to her father and said, "It seems I shall not marry tonight. Am I doomed to die an old maid?"
"Of course not,"
the king told her.
"These fellows are all fools. Tomorrow a clever man is sure to come."
The next day they reconvened in the great hall. All day long, one suitor after another tried to guess the weave of the slippers, but none revealed the right answer. Hours passed. Soon the sun set. The princess was about to give up when a young man waltzed in the hall. He took one look at the shoes and said, "I believe those are woven from a caterpillar cocoon."
"Correct," the king said. "My daughter you shall wed."
Now, you may be saying to yourself, how could he have known such a thing? To answer that, you must understand, this man was a powerful sorcerer, and because of this, he could easily surmise what the slippers were made of. That night, at the stroke of 12, the princess and the sorcerer were married under a starry sky. The entire kingdom celebrated far into the wee hours. The princess was pleased with her new husband. He looked young and dashing and was quite a good dancer. The king also liked his new son-in-law. Not only was the young man clever, but the gilded coach he had arrived in was not something a poor man owned. The queen could be seen smiling and dancing with the king throughout the evening, and many a courtier noted it had been many years since she'd been in such a good mood. No one knew that during the ceremony she had sent the sky-blue filly into the forest to be executed. Now before you get upset, I should tell you, the soldier didn't have the heart to kill such a magnificent beast. Instead of doing the deed, he led the horse to the edge of the kingdom and pointed to a road. "Go now," he said, "and never return to this kingdom." Back at the castle, the young man, or should I say, sorcerer, shuffled his new bride into his coach. "We must away, my darling," he told her, "the dawn does approach." With that, the carriage, drawn by 8 steeds, bore off at a tremendous speed. "Is your kingdom in a distant land?" the princess asked. No, the sorcerer said. "We shall be there before daybreak." The coach sped across her father's kingdom, and then down a cliffside road to the ocean. The sea breeze whipped through the princess's hair as the 8 steeds galloped across the surf. "We're not far now," the sorcerer said. In the distance, the princess could see the black woods. "That forest looks a little gloomy," she said. "My kingdom is always veiled in darkness," the sorcerer told her. As they entered the woods, the sky became black as pitch. Neither moonlight nor starlight could be seen above. And right as the princess was beginning to think she may have made a mistake marrying this mystery man, they saw a beacon in the night, an ivory palace radiating light. The sorcerer helped the princess down from the coach and led her on a path of white pebbles. The gardens were filled with flowers that glowed in the night. The birds that fluttered about were covered in luminous feathers. Even the water in the fountain seemed to shine. In the dining hall, silver plates and crystal goblets covered the tables. The white-gloved hands of invisible servants poured them the most exquisite wines and served them an assortment of dishes the princess had never tasted before. After they dined, the sorcerer led her to a blazing fireplace and handed her a tinderbox.
I only ask that you serve me in one way. You must tend to this fire each and every day. In the morning when you wake, and at night before you sleep, here you must come, and this fire you must keep.
The fire will never go out on my watch, she told him.
Now I must go to bed,
He said.
Today's events have wearied me.
Of course, husband, she said.
On the morrow, I must travel. This hearth better be lit when I return.
Each day the princess would go to the dining hall, and the gloved hands of invisible servants would bring her breakfast. Then she would gather wood for the fire and toss half of it on the flames. Usually by the time she'd finished tending to the fire, she'd be so exhausted she'd lie down for a little nap. And when she'd wake up, it would be time for supper, and then off to the hearth to feed it more wood. And so it went, day after day, as she became a slave to the blaze. Until one morning, when a red-billed blue magpie flew down and alighted on a tree branch. "Caw-caw," the magpie called. "What's so important?" the princess asked. "Can't you see I'm gathering wood for the fire?" "Caw-caw," the blue magpie called, before flying a little ways off and landing in a different tree. "You want me to follow you?" the princess asked. "Caw-caw," the blue magpie called, before flying even farther into the forest. The princess laid the lumber down and followed the blue magpie. At the end of the trail stood a weeping willow. Its branches were so low, the leaves almost touched the ground. She pushed them aside like curtains and stepped inside. There she found the magpie sitting on a headstone inscribed with the name Princess Guinevere. "Caw-caw," the blue magpie called, before flying a little ways more and landing on a second marker. The princess strolled down to it and read, Princess Estelle. The blue magpie flew even further and landed on top of a mausoleum. "Caw-caw." Above the door read, Princess Circa, First Lady of the Fire. "Do you want me to go inside?" the princess asked. "Caw-caw," the blue magpie called. The metal gate squeaked when the princess pulled it open. Inside she found a silver chair, and sitting on top, a looking glass. What a lovely little mirror, she thought. She wiped off the dust and held it up so she could get a look at herself. When she saw the face staring back, she almost dropped the mirror. Does this mirror deceive? My face looks wrinkled and frail like an old woman's. "Caw-caw," the blue magpie called. "Caw-caw." And with that, the magpie vanished, and in its place stood the sky blue filly. The princess wrapped her arms around the horse's neck. "I never thought I'd see you again," she said. "Indeed," the blue filly responded. "I was banished from your father's kingdom. I didn't return until your father sent word of your disappearance." "Disappearance?" the princess asked. "I've been gone a fortnight at most." "You've been gone for years," the horse told her. The princess reached up and touched the crow's feet next to her eyes. "Years? No, it cannot be. The blue filly continued, Your father summoned me and asked that I search the 3 magical realms for you, and so I have looked for you under every blade of grass in the Fairey forest, down every mine shaft in the dwarf mountain, and under the seashells of the enchanted ocean depths. I can't stay here a second longer, the princess said. Please, you must help me leave this horrible place. We'll never escape while the sky is blackened, the filly told her. Go and douse the fire with water, then stamp out any warm cinders with your bare feet. Only then will the smoke clear, and we'll be able to leave. The princess followed the blue filly's instructions, and before long, the magical cloud of smoke, which had darkened the sky above, faded. The princess walked outside into the dawn sunlight and saw her husband's home as if for the first time. Instead of ivory towers, the palace appeared decrepit and covered in soot. Instead of vibrant birds and flowers, there were dark little beasties scurrying about. Instead of invisible servants, there was a pile of mops and brooms lying discarded by a dried-up fountain. Pack the tinderbox, the magic mirror, and one of your slippers, the blue filly said, and let's away. The princess took the 3 items and placed them in her pocket. Then she mounted the blue filly, and they galloped off. As they made their way through the dark woods, they heard the earth crack open and the roar of a coach emerging from underground. That sounds like your husband. He'll be upon us soon. When he's close, throw your slipper in his path. The princess glanced over her shoulder. She saw her husband atop a coach drawn by 8 black steeds. Their eyes smoldered like lava, and smoke curled out of their nostrils. The sorcerer pulled up alongside the princess. Give us your hand, he said, so we may return to my kingdom. What has happened to your horses? She asked. Their eyes burn like coals, and their snouts breathe smoke. The dawn doesn't like my kind, the sorcerer answered. It's playing a trick on your eyes. He held out his hand. The princess took the slipper from her pocket and tossed it on the ground in front of the sorcerer's coach, and where it landed, a towering mountain grew. The sorcerer pulled back on the reins, and the 8 steeds came to a halt. The sides of the mountains were steep and jagged and impossible to climb. The sorcerer had no choice but to turn and ride around it. This gave the blue filly and the princess a bit of a breather, but only for a moment, because before long, they could hear the thunderous hooves behind them again. That sounds like your husband, the blue filly said. He'll be upon us soon. When he's close, throw the mirror in his path. The princess glanced over her shoulder. The coach behind her burned as bright as the horse's eyes. A trail of fire left the earth scorched. The sorcerer whipped the reins and drew closer. Give us your hand, he said, so we may return to my kingdom. What has happened to your coach? She asked. It burns like an inferno. The dawn doesn't like my kind, the sorcerer answered. It's playing a trick on your eyes. He held out his hand. The princess took the looking glass from her pocket and tossed it on the ground, and where it landed, a large lake appeared. The sorcerer pulled back on the reins. The 8 steeds came to a halt. The lake was deep and wide and impossible to cross. The sorcerer had no choice but to turn and ride around it. This gave the blue filly and the princess a bit of a breather, but only for a moment, because before long they could hear pursuing hooves behind them. That sounds like your husband, the blue filly said. He'll be upon us soon. When he's close, throw the tinderbox in his path. The princess glanced over her shoulder. She saw her husband atop a coach approaching quickly. As the dawn light touched his face, his cheeks lost their rosiness. He no longer looked like the spry young man she had married, but something ancient. His skin looked cracked like old leather, and his eyes peered out of sunken holes. black and vacant. The sorcerer pulled up alongside the princess.
"Give us your hand," he said, "so we may return to my kingdom."
"What has happened to you?" she asked. "You don't look like the youthful man I married."
"The dawn doesn't like my kind," the sorcerer answered. "It's playing a trick on your eyes."
He held out his hand. The princess took the tinderbox from her pocket and tossed it on the ground, and where it landed, a 7-headed serpent appeared. The sorcerer pulled back on the reins. The 8 steeds came to a halt, but it was too late. The scaly beast devoured the sorcerer, the fiery coach, and the 8 abyssal steeds. With the fire stamped out and the sorcerer gone, the princess regained the many years she had lost. The wrinkles of time and the frailness of age became a distant memory, and before long she looked as young as before. When they arrived in the princess's kingdom, her father and mother looked exactly as she remembered them. They were overjoyed to see her. After the princess told them all what had happened, the king proclaimed,
"The sky blue filly will live in my kingdom from this day forth."
The queen had no choice but to agree. For the rest of their days, the princess and the blue filly were never far from each other. When they would ride through the kingdom, sometimes they'd go so fast they'd fly off the ground, up towards the sky. The end, and good night. May the stars guide you to the dawn's light.